Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another exciting night of NBA basketball. Cade dribbles through traffic, gets to the basket, and throws it down.
Out of bounds, Detroit basketball!
Pistons fans, welcome back to the Palace of Pistons Podcast, part of the Believe Network and brought to you by FanDuel. I'm your host, Mike Anguilano. Joining me this week is the full cast and crew, Jasper Apollonia and Aaron Johnson. Fellas, how we doing?
It's good to be back. I know we took a week off from the show for Thanksgiving, and prior to that, we've been kind of ragtag crewing it. We've had two of us, it feels like, only for a while here. So to get all three of us together, it's going to be great. I'm excited to get into everything. And I'm just glad both the boys are along here with me for the show.
Yeah, I'm gonna a little post-Thanksgiving thankfulness to have the whole squad together. As Mike said, the whole cast and crew. You can't see it. We do have like 30 people behind us at all times, helping us out.
Big budget production.
Oh yeah. We are losing a lot on this podcast, but we do it for you guys because we love you so much. We are down $10 million this year. No, it's great to be back. It's great to be talking with you guys. I can't say I'm so thankful that on the last podcast you guys compared me to Tobias Harris. That kind of feels like ageism, comparing me to Uncle T. I guess I'm Uncle J now. That's pretty hard. But yeah, man, it's great to be back. And you know what's crazy? This is our first podcast, the three of us, it feels like in a little bit. And it's also the first time that the three of us are going to be discussing the Pistons post-loss this year, which is crazy to think. So lots to touch on today. I'm really excited. Let's get into it.
Let's get into it. But before we do get into some of those losses and the Giannis cloud that's hanging over the NBA, from our friends at FanDuel, let's talk about a post-season award that Cade is currently leading at the time of this recording. It's Clutch Player of the Year. Cade is plus 280 on FanDuel right now. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is not far behind him. He kind of airmailed a three last night against the Bucks 2 nights ago. If you're listening to this, it did not look great, but honestly, that was just a microcosm of the whole game in general. Having a huge lead, blowing it, failing to beat a team like Milwaukee that did not have the best player. Aaron, any thoughts on Cade leading the way for Clutch Player of the Year, in addition to Jalen Duren leading the way for Most Improved Player of the Year?
Yeah, I think that Cade is certainly belonging to be in this echelon up for this award outside of that disastrous 3-point attempt against Milwaukee. It's funny because my phone was blowing up with people like, oh my gosh, this is why Cade's not clutch. He can't make those final shots. I saw a local radio personality talking about Cade's lack of clutchness prior to the Bucks game, maybe a few days before that. And then you go and you look at his statistics in the fourth quarter. You look at the fact that he's second in the NBA in points per game in the fourth quarter. You look at how many close games that the Pistons have played. I believe it was something like I forget the exact number, but a lot of their last 10 or so games this year have been decided by, less than 10 points or something along those lines.
Aaron, they've played 14 clutch games this year.
Okay,
14 is a lot.
Yeah,
and Cade is
their games,
and Cade's second in total points.
And Cade's second in total points. I mean, everyone had their pitchforks out after the Milwaukee game, and we're going to talk about that game a little bit more overall, but in a very frustrating loss in a game where the Pistons actually should have never been in that position anyways. The Cade air ball at the end was just like a final middle finger to the people watching at home who were hoping to see the Pistons win. But the game before that against Atlanta, he absolutely carved up their defense in the clutch. He's made plays not just offensively in the clutch for Detroit, but also defensively, and that does not get talked about by people, and I'm sure it's not thought about by the award voters and the fans who they have opinions on this award. So in my mind, this is absolutely Cade Cunningham deserving to be in the discussion for this award. He's been spectacular Obviously, the most recent clutch situation did not go as you would like to see for someone in this discussion, but on the season, Cade has been phenomenal on both sides of the court in clutch situations.
He's been spectacular. And look, he has better shooting percentages in the clutch than he does overall on the season. He's upped his game in those most crucial situations. I'm sorry, him missing one free throw at the end of that Boston game when he went, 14 from 16 from the line throughout the entire game. That to me is not indicative of his clutchness, nor is airballing a three at the end of that Milwaukee game. When it comes to clutch situations, you have to take everything into account. It's been, said so many times before. Guys like Kobe, guys like Michael Jordan, when it came to last second shots in particular, did not shoot them particularly well. They are still seen as some of the most clutch players ever. And why is that? Because clutchness comes with opportunity. You have to have the opportunity in order to show what you can do. You're not always going to hit those. And more so than the opportunity, you have to have the cojones to pardon the expression, but grab the situation by the balls and make it your own. And I think that's one of those things that Cade has absolutely done this year. He's had the opportunities, and he showed up for the vast majority of them. Anyone saying, he hasn't showed up for 100% he hasn't hit 100% of his shots in the clutch. I'm sorry, guys, if that is your standard for a clutch player, you are going to be very, very disappointed. One guy I was saying before this, I feel great about Cade's chances of making it, but somebody who wasn't on that list, Jalen Johnson for the Hawks. You want to talk about a guy who showed up in crunch time for them as well a couple days ago. Cade got the last laugh, but Jalen Johnson is a guy, he's played extraordinarily well in the clutch for the Hawks this year. I wouldn't be surprised to see him come up a little bit on those rankings as well, and get listed sooner rather than later, because that's his team. It's going to be interesting to see what happens when Trae Young comes back. But to me, that looks like the road to success is running through Jalen Johnson. He had that masterful game against Philly the night before where he dropped, 43 points, like 43, 14, and 7, something like that. Outdueled Tyrese Maxey in double overtime. So that's another guy I have an eye on too.
He's a triple-double machine. Just does everything. He's probably the most underrated player. Well, maybe the most underrated player in the league right now for a Hawks team that is doing more than fine without Trae Young. But a team that's not – go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to say, that 2021 draft, my God, what an all-timer.
So good.
What an all-time draft. Like, Jalen Johnson is incredible, and I still don't know if he'd be a top 3 pick in that draft. That's how good that draft was.
Yep, it's going to go down as one of the better drafts. What I was going to say, I was like snowballing right into a segue. A team that's not going to be as good without their superstar is probably the Bucks, who are going to now be without Giannis Antetokounmpo for 2 to 4 weeks due to a calf strain. Calf strains are popping up all the time in the NBA, and they inevitably lead to, let's hope not, knock on my wooden desk, they lead to Achilles tears. It's just kind of the natural progression of things. Let's hope that does not happen to Giannis. There was a story from ESPN that he is talking about his future with Milwaukee, and that obviously is a massive, massive curveball. So how about before we talk about Giannis wanting out, let's talk about the Bucks game in general. Giannis left after 3 minutes, went gimp after – looked like he was going to run back on defense and just crumble to the ground. He left. I think the Pistons had a 17-point lead at one point, or 18-point lead at one point. They ended up losing that game. And we were alluding to that. Cade missed 3, just hit nothing but nothing. That's a game that showed a lot of deficiencies with this team that we were kind of worried about. It's not a hit the panic button loss type of deal, but it is indicative of some things that we were concerned about heading into this season. And one of them was Duncan Robinson. The offense has looked clunky without Duncan Robinson. Jasper, you had mentioned it earlier about wanting to talk about this. Duncan Robinson is second on the Pistons in plus-minus on off the court. Second behind Jalen Duren, who is blowing out everybody. He's plus 17.5 on versus when he's off. Duncan is second at 11.9. The offense is dramatically better with him on the floor. The last 2 games, he hasn't been on the floor. And the offense has looked a little bit kind of like last year's team without Malik Beasley, or rather the year before. Offense just looks way too difficult to get into. They can't get to their spots. The spacing is a lot more crunched. Anything that you saw from that Bucks game that sort of highlights what the Pistons need to do over the next couple of weeks? Because Pistons fans, myself included, have kind of looked at this giant winning streak and thought, oh, we're fine. Everything's fine. Everything is great in Piston land, but there are some things that need to be addressed and looked into a little bit further.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're all in agreement. This is a good team. This is a team that's going to compete for 50 wins this season. It just is what it is at this point, and that should be the expectation moving forward. But they still have the same issues that we were all talking about during the offseason. They still don't have enough shooting. And these last 2 games have absolutely proved that. Look, do you know how many players are on the roster right now that even shoot league average from 3? How many players the Pistons have? Just give me a quick guess.
Mike, I don't know.
2.
The answer is 4. And
Okay.
and those players are Tobias Harris, who's missed a good stretch of this season.
Yep.
Isaiah Stewart, who is a center. You
Isaiah
also
Stewart.
I know. And then you have Karis LeVert and Duncan Robinson. So my frustration with last night really came from a lot of the reactions I saw, where I saw people blaming JB Bickerstaff for not running enough actions, for not doing the right things, for not having the right lineups out there, for putting Karis LeVert in crunch time. I see so many people wondering why Karis LeVert is playing crunch time. It's very simple. He can handle the ball and he can shoot. And there's pretty much nobody else on this roster right now other than him who can do that next to Cade. Jaden Ivey's on a minutes restriction. He hasn't played basketball in a year. He's still working his way back. Like, this team can defend regardless of who's on the floor. The issue is offensively. Like, they are very, very limited right now. And I think you're starting to see exactly what the limitations of their roster are at this moment in time when Duncan Robinson's not on the floor. They just don't have the spacing. And teams are now attacking them. You saw it with the Atlanta game, and you saw it against the Bucks. Teams are hitting them with 2-3 zone because they go, look, we don't actually care. The number one way you beat a 2-3 zone is by getting the ball into the middle of that zone at the top of the key, and then reading whatever the defense does. So if they step up from the center position to meet you, you have somebody cutting through the back door for an open layup. If they collapse, you spread out to open shooters. If they don't do either of that, you take the ball and you drive to the rim. It's pretty simple. For most NBA teams, the problem is the Pistons don't have anybody that they can just throw into the corners right now with Duncan Robinson not on the floor. And I saw a clip going around today from the official NBA account where Tim Legler sat down with JB Bickerstaff, and they talked about the importance of spacing. And they ran through a short pick and roll with Jalen Duren and Cade Cunningham in the playoffs against the Knicks, where you had Tim Hardaway Jr. on the outside, Tobias Harris on the outside. You had Ausar Thompson cutting, and you had Cade coming off of the screen with Duren getting the ball at the top of the key. That right there had so much spacing to it, and the Knicks had to defend it legitimately, because if they, again, for the exact reason I said, if they come up on Duren, then Duren can throw it out, or he can pass it to the cutting Ausar, or he can take the ball. And theoretically, he should be able to do those actions even better this year based on what we've seen of him on ball, but he can't without Duncan Robinson because there's nothing to keep defenses honest. And I see people talking about, oh, well, they need to run more cuts. Folks, I hate to tell you this. The Pistons run the 8th most cuts of any team in the NBA this year. They are the 5th worst cutting team in the NBA. Ausar Thompson is 23rd percentile in terms of cutters on the season. The cut game, it's not an issue of they're not doing it. They're not good at it. It's not an action that they can continue to run over and over right now because they don't have the personnel. So when I'm looking at this team, and we're going to get into the discussion of the big guy that we're all talking about trading for. But I think that there's another aspect to it as well. Even if they do make a big trade, they need more spacing. And look, if they're not going to get Malik Beasley back, we have no idea what's happening with the NBA investigation. I'm basically calling it a wash from my perspective. If they get him, that's great. If they don't, that's where I'm at right now. I'm assuming they're not. They need to do something in regards to their spacing, because I don't see the catch and shoot ability right now. Perhaps Jaden Ivey can step up to fill that role, but I think that there's another question that comes from there where it's like, well, if Jaden Ivey is shooting the volume you need him to from outside in order to have teams defend you credibly on the perimeter and avoid going to that 2-3 zone, is that really the best role for somebody like him, somebody that's looking for a payday? If that's what you're asking him to do, maybe the trade packages are looking a little bit more appealing to you right now, because that's a skill set you can acquire somewhere else.
Yeah, I think, the problem for Detroit is, like, in this Milwaukee game, the Bucks ran that 2-3 zone essentially the entire game, and they said, we will let you shoot. The Pistons attempted over 43s, but if you don't make them, no one's going to care that you're taking them. And so that is a massive problem. And again, it is something that we spent a lot of time in the offseason talking about, because it was so clearly a problem, a deficiency for this team. The Pistons do not have enough consistent three-point shooters to knock a team out of a 2-3 zone. And the Pistons will continue to see more teams deploy a 2-3 zone to junk up the paint, where the Pistons are elite at scoring at. They are a top-level team in points per game in the paint. Teams will give up that three-point shot to Detroit until the Pistons prove that they have the ammo to knock down threes at a better clip. And that's why I think getting Jaden Ivey back is a huge thing for this team, because that is something that he can do, is he can knock down threes, and it's something he's done since coming back. But outside of him, outside of Duncan Robinson, Caris LeVert, to me, I know his shooting numbers are solid right now. He is definitely not the most consistent outside shooter. And so then you also have Isaiah Stewart, who is not a guy you want taking a ton of volume from the outside the arc, and you have Tobias Harris. Cade Cunningham has not been a good three-point shooter this year. His three-point shooting has never been his strong suit. He's really struggling right now from outside the arc. This team is just not conducive to that general play style in the NBA right now. They just do not have the roster to shoot teams out of a 2-3 zone. That's a massive, massive issue, and that's why as you see these games continue on and on, you're seeing more and more teams not just mix in 2-3 zone, but leverage it at a very high rate. Like, they're playing more zone against Detroit than they're playing man, because they're willing to let the Pistons take those outside shots because they're playing the percentages. The NBA is analytical. It is, I know it's a hop on topic, but the analytics work, and teams see that with Detroit, and they're going to continue to adjust. And we're saying this, and the Pistons have 4 losses on the year. They've been, they're the number 1 seed in the East. The only team that has more wins than them is the Oklahoma City Thunder. So, not to say the sky's falling, but teams are going to continue to adjust. And it just shows the massive deficiency in this roster. It's showing that they have a massive weakness that teams are showing they are able to exploit. And I don't necessarily know if it gets better with this roster that they have. It feels like they're going to have to do something outside of internal, changes to the rotation or anything like that to fix this.
So before you get into that, Jasper, on the mention of Jaden Ivey, real quick, because we talked about him in the last pod. His first game back was the 22nd against the Bucks, actually. He played 15 minutes. He's now played in 7 games, still getting his legs back, and we get that. And it's looked good at times. It's looked not good at times, particularly on the defensive end. Teams are just going to pick on him when he's on the floor. Any quick thoughts on Jaden Ivey before we move into, potentially talk about trades that ship him away? Anything on him real fast?
I think people have completely overanalyzed Jaden Ivey since he's gotten back. I think there are a lot of predetermined opinions on Jaden Ivey that people are just looking to validate as quickly as possible. And this is not me saying that Jaden Ivey's been spectacular since coming back. He certainly hasn't. Defensively, he's had some definite errors, some of that stuff that we've seen from him before, sticking on the ball watching while he's away from the ball. Offensively, he's not looked particularly well trying to orchestrate offense for himself, but he has looked really good as a shooter, and that is something that Detroit needs. And if he can continue to be a threat from beyond the arc and slowly but surely start to get into a better rhythm with the ball in his hands. I mean, we saw it for a little bit in the Bucks game last night. It felt like it's starting to click a little bit better for him, where he's knowing how to get to the paint. He had a nice little baseline floater late in the game that was a good shot. You have to give this guy some time, and people on the outside are just not willing to do that. They look at every game as if it's Game 7 of the NBA Finals, and meanwhile, you hear the Pistons talk about Jaden Ivey and how any team should be approaching a player returning. Is like, it's going to take some time. It's not all going to come at once. This is a guy that has not played since January 1st of this year. Let's give him more than 75 minutes on the court before we start making some sweeping generalizations about what he is, what he will become, and what he never will become. And so the Pistons are saying each and every game they're seeing something grow with Jaden Ivey. They're seeing something where he's playing better. And it's like, let's just give that some time. I'm not sitting here saying that Jaden Ivey's going to become an all-star or, even be on this team at the end of this season. But I'm not making sweeping generalizations about him after his first 3 to 5 games back, where he's on a 10, 12, 15, 20-minute restriction. Like, this is just, it's crazy to me. And it's because people have felt a certain way about him for time, and they want to move on, and that's fine, but that's just not how basketball is analyzed. No one in their right mind that's making decisions at the NBA level is looking at 1 to 5 games of a dude who hasn't played in 10, 11 months and determining if they're, worth continuing to play or not. The Pistons are going to give him time, as they should. And I think with each game, he has done something better than he was doing in the games prior. I mean, the outside shooting is going to be a big part of his game moving forward. That leap that he took last year is really looking real. And it gives Detroit something that they desperately need in terms of more outside shooting. What will be huge for him is if he can continue to gain a comfort level with the ball in his hands, continue to get better at attacking the rim, at creating dribble penetration, and then ultimately setting the table for others, because that is a big part of what I think he needs to do. Even if he's not always a point guard, or even if he is playing with another guard that handles the ball and does some of the offensive initiating, I think Jaden Ivey needs to be able to do that. He hasn't been great at that so far, but again, I'm going to let the guy have more than 5 games after 11 months off of playing basketball before saying he just can't do it and he's got to go.
Yeah, I completely agree with you here, Aaron. Patience is the key here, and that is just the reality of it. Like the Bucks game was the first time since he's been back where I actually felt like he was able to attack the defense in the paint to any credible, level. And that is not because Jaden Ivey can't attack the paint anymore. It's just because it is going to take him time. The guy hasn't played basketball, like you said, in 11 months. And even as he was ramping up for this season, he suffered another setback with his knee. So there's also a mental aspect that he needs to clear too. Like, these are not robots. They don't go to the shop, get fixed, and then they're back to normal. No, these are human beings. And it is going to take him time to get his confidence. It's going to take him time to figure out exactly what his role on this team is going to be and what he needs to do. And it's going to take him time to get past that minutes restriction so he can be out there for long enough stretches to where he can really feel comfortable. We've talked about this, 12-man rotation thing that JB Bickerstaff has tried to do, because guys earned that opportunity, and how difficult that is to navigate as a head coach and as a team. And with Jaden Ivey coming into the mix as well, like that just adds another wrinkle to it. Like it's not like he's coming back to a team where it's like, hey, we need you right now. It's like, hey, we need to figure out how to incorporate you back into a machine that's really humming right now. And also figure out how to keep these other guys happy too. So, I don't know. I've just seen a lot of like criticism of Ivy and JB Bickerstaff lately, and I find it really, really puzzling. These guys have a very, very difficult job right in front of them, and it's one that there is no quick fix. Like there is no easy way for JB Bickerstaff to play the right guys in order to win games now, and also make sure that the locker room is healthy and that players feel supported, and that the word that we love to use around here, the vibes continue to be good, not just for an early season 13-game win streak, but into the playoffs, because the expectations have changed and what you need to be focusing on has changed. It's about maintaining the culture now. It's not about building it. It's about maintaining a level of a standard of play. It's about maintaining a locker room vibe that works. And, in order to do that, it's just going to take time. So for me, I have no judgment on Jaden Ivey or his play, probably until like early mid-January, just to be honest with you, because I think that's where they need to be. And it's the same thing for like some of these losses they've been having. They've lost 5 games. All of those games have been to like decent teams. This even comes in line with like the criticism of the roster. Yeah, the roster is flawed, but it's still good enough to beat most teams in the NBA most nights. That is the reality of it. So for all the criticisms we can have in here, we also need to have the proper perspective, which is that the Pistons have not lost to a bad team this year. They haven't. They've only lost to decent teams. Their worst loss was opening night to the Chicago Bulls. All the other 4 losses have come to teams that are solidly in the playoff picture right now. Last night, I would say, it was the worst loss of the season. No doubt about it. And they still could have won it.
Yeah.
Without the guy who has their second best plus minus. So like, I don't know, man. For me, nah. With Jaden, I'm chilling for now. I just want to see how JB Bickerstaff incorporates him back into this lineup and what his role is going to be moving forward as the minutes restriction lessons.
That's my question as well, because 7 games in, or however many he's played, I think it's 7, is just getting his feet back under him. But then how does that look? Like, where does he fit? Is he the backup point guard? Is he going to go back in the starting lineup? How is this going to look? Does the 3-point shooting come around, and does that alter the plans for that? Probably. So, yeah, I think mid-January is about right. And the little underrated thing here is that they are so good right now that they're afforded that extra time by playing as well as they are. I mean, imagine if this team was, they had 7 wins or 8 wins, and now you're reincorporating Jaden Ivey. I wonder if that changes the calculus on how they want him to operate. They've been afforded more time to integrate him the way that they feel comfortable doing. And the Pistons have been they slow roll a lot. Trajan Langdon doesn't want to be sped up in his process of building the team. He might be sped up now, and that's what we're going to talk about next. But yeah, it's underrated that they have been afforded time to let Ivy reincorporate and get his role situated, get his legs under him, because the Pistons have been so good. All right, let's talk about trade stuff, because Giannis Antetokounmpo went to ESPN, or there was a report through ESPN, or somebody went to Shams and said, we're going to discuss our future with the organization. And the Pistons have been linked nationally to potential guys like Lauri Markkanen. Are they a buy team? Because the East is kind of weak. And even with the Cavs playing terribly and the Knicks playing so-so, and Orlando just now getting their feet back under them, they're firmly in the mix to not only get out of the first round, to get out of the second round and into the Eastern Conference Finals. They're a buying team, potentially. And like I said, Trajan Langdon's been let's wait it out. We're not going to do something drastic, but When Giannis doesn't really want to play in Milwaukee anymore, and the Pistons have some ammo and some wins, and a guy like Cade, who's an MVP candidate right now, maybe that changes things. So who wants to go first? Who wants to go first on a potential trade for Giannis?
Well, I'm going to quickly just give myself a little pat on the back because you guys remember, I don't know if you saw it yesterday.
Oh, I do.
I said it over the summer. The Knicks spoke to Giannis. This happened. There was a meeting. They sat down. Nothing happened. And now you're seeing the reporting on it. So this has been a thing that's been going on for a second. He didn't feel like it was the right thing for him in that moment for whatever reason. Perhaps it was the Knicks. That I don't know, but that did happen. So I would be surprised if Giannis Antetokounmpo is not moved. The question, I think, really is like, are the Pistons that team, and what are they going to have to give up in order to do it? I think for me right now, and Aaron, I want to see what you think on this as well. I think for me right now, everybody but Cade Cunningham is on the table. I love Ausar Thompson. I think what Jalen Duren has done this year is unbelievable. But Giannis Antetokounmpo, maybe there's maybe been one or two players who had a better resume before the age of 28 than Giannis did. Like, the guy can win you a championship. And the reality is, if you have him and Cade Cunningham on the same team, you have the two best players in the Eastern Conference on the same squad, unquestionably, in my opinion. And yeah, I think that you're giving up a lot, but the reality is, in order to build around those two guys, it's not really going to take all that much. You just got to find some guys who can play defense and some guys who can shoot. And that's kind of it. And how do we know that? Well, because Giannis Antetokounmpo basically won a title with that exact strategy without a player as good as Cade Cunningham on that roster. So yeah, I mean, if he's open to it, this is obviously the key, is like the return. Can the Pistons offer a return that's as good as what somebody else might be able to offer? That I'm not 100% sure of because of the pick situations. But yeah, of course, you do it. If Giannis is on the table, you give up whoever you have to give up other than Cade Cunningham. And I'm not really thinking twice about it.
Earlier this week on Palace of Pistons.com, I wrote about the Pistons potentially being a team to make a trade. And do they need to make a trade for a star player right now? And I wrote about, the pros and cons, and obviously the pros of trading for a Lauri Markkanen or an Anthony Davis are self-explanatory. But I wrote about the cons, and like part of this success for Detroit has been built on their very strong depth and the number of guys they have that can step in on any given night and play a big role, or on a different night play a small role or not play at all, and then the next night be called upon and have a big game. The question, it changes for when you go from talking about a player of Lauri Markkanen status, or even, at this stage of his career, Anthony Davis's status. It's a different answer than when you're talking about a top 5, even if you're low on him, top 7 player in the NBA in Giannis. Everyone outside of Cade Cunningham should be available. That being said, I don't want to see the Pistons give up both of Ausar and Jalen Duren and Ivey and a bunch of picks. Like, there is a line, but when it comes to assets and untouchables in a package, the only untouchable asset that the Detroit Pistons have is Cade Cunningham when it comes to trading for a player of Giannis's stature, Giannis's credibility. I mean, this is a game wrecker. This is a borderline MVP candidate every single year, year in and year out. And you would, again, as you said, Jasper, be pairing the top 2 players in the conference together. I mean, outside of adding or finding shooting and some defense and some additional rim protection, things like that, like, that is such a great foundation to have, should it ever be possible, that I don't see how you go to the Bucks and say, we're not willing to include Ausar Thompson in any deal for Giannis, or we're not willing to include Jalen Duren in any deal for for Giannis. And that's not a discredit to them. I mean, I think they're both fine young players with, strong ceilings in the NBA. But when you are talking about acquiring a top 5-ish player in the NBA, there can only be so few untouchable assets out there. And there's nothing on Detroit's roster. There's nothing in Detroit's asset treasure chest that comes close to being untouchable outside of Cade Cunningham. And it's unfortunate because I think there are some people that we talk to that feel otherwise, but I feel like everyone here right now is kind of in agreement. So it's tough to have that debate here because we just don't really have that differing opinion. But there are people out there that feel that the Pistons shouldn't be willing to include either of those guys in a Giannis deal. And I just disagree. Again, if you're talking about Ausar and Jalen Duren and picks and Ron Holland, there's a line and there is a limit to what the Pistons should give up. But if it comes down to it and the piece in the deal is, Ausar Thompson over a pick or Ausar Thompson instead of Ron Holland, I just think the Pistons have to do it. I mean, the opportunities to acquire a player of that stature are so limited. And with already having a guy in Cade Cunningham, it would immediately catapult you into this. They're a really good regular season team, but are they going to fall into what other Eastern Conference teams that have been at the top of the conference done in years past, aka the Cavs, aka the Knicks, and still end up bowing out of the playoffs in the first round or second round because they don't have that elite level talent to get them to the top of the hill. Cade and Giannis together with Detroit being able to still maintain a group around them, it just has to be considered if you're Detroit. It has to.
I mean, it's as simple as this. He is a top 25 player of all time who is still in his prime. And he perfectly complements what your young superstar does. Talk about two guys who seem instantly complementary players. You can have both guys take a little bit step off of how much they need to create and initiate. Cade Giannis pick and rolls, Cade Giannis inverted pick and rolls. There's no limit to the possibility there. And I think the reality is with both those guys' skill sets on both ends of the floor. You're talking about all you have to do is fill out the roster with guys who make sense. That's all you have to do with those two players on the roster. And I know there's a lot of, teams that make that big superstar trade and that's what they think the reality is. But that's not always the case. This is the case here. These guys would work together. And I think even more importantly, it's not like a James Harden going to the Sixers thing. You know what I mean? Giannis is still, obviously, this calf injury notwithstanding, healthy. He is still in his athletic prime. He has not taken a step back. He has not suffered an injury. He is still the best player in the conference. And you see how much he impacts a team on a nightly basis just by looking at the Milwaukee Bucks. They lost 7 straight games without him. He is one of the most impactful players on both ends of the court. This would be just, for me, I'm sorry, Ausar Thompson is a guy that I've wanted on my team for since I saw him, and I would give him up in an instant. This is a no-brainer. This takes you from being hey, maybe we can make the finals to, if we get a few good pieces around us, we can compete with OKC. And I don't know how many other teams in the league could say that outside of Denver.
The reality of this entire conversation is, though, will Giannis accept a trade anywhere but the New York Knicks at this rate? I mean, didn't he also just come out and say something along the lines of he'd like to see the European NBA stars go to big time markets? I feel like there was something about that came out recently, or maybe it was an old quote, but with all the stuff, with all the previously reported stuff of Giannis wanting to play for the Knicks, like, I mean, the Knicks should be trying to do it. I just can't imagine why a team wouldn't want to trade for Giannis when he is such an impactful player on both sides of the floor.
Right. Even if the Knicks do trade for him, they'd be giving up rotation pieces. I mean, like several of them. Like you're probably giving up Karl Anthony Towns. Probably. I mean, that's might be the cost. And I don't think the Knicks are going to blink at that because just like Cade and Giannis, Jalen Brunson and Giannis makes a whole lot of sense too. The Thunder are going to be a team that has a ton of picks. They could dangle the LA Clippers pick to start, plus the trove of other picks they have. I remember reading somewhere, I don't know if it was from Bleacher Report. I think he said somewhere he wants to go to a state with no income tax. And he was comparing that to his time in Greece where money was tighter. Nobody quote me on that, but that would put Dallas and Houston into the mix. I don't want to see him go to San Antonio, even though they probably could put something together. I kind of like the idea of Wemby being his own monolith out there. And the Heat will say that they want to get in on him, but they're not going to do that. They don't have anything that the Bucks want, but the Pistons do. We love Ausar Thompson. We think Ron Holland has a high future, maybe a higher offensive future than Ausar Thompson. Every team in the NBA could use a guy like Ausar. But every team could use a Giannis in a different way. He's like the best player, one of the best players in the league, top 3 in the league, top 2 in the league on any given night. So I'm with you guys, but build me an argument for why you wouldn't want to empty the cabinet for Giannis.
I mean, if you're not trading for Giannis and you're the Pistons, you have to feel insanely confident in the core pieces outside of Cade. You have to feel insanely confident that what you've seen from Ausar Thompson this year is him trending in the right direction. You have to feel that extremely confident that this Jalen Duren leap is real and that you're going to extend him in the offseason. It means also that you must not believe that Giannis has an extended period of time of still being a top 10 player in the NBA. It means that you feel he is within the next few years going to take a massive decline, or and this is when I just you don't make the trade. You feel that Giannis doesn't want to be here, wouldn't be here long term. If you're not making the trade if it's a 1-year rental when the cost is going to be as high as it would be for a player like that. That is the argumentative points there on why you wouldn't trade for Giannis.
I'll throw one other one into there as well. I mean, I think maybe you just go, we don't think we can win a title still, even if we trade for Giannis. Like, we don't think we can put together a complementary roster quick enough to take advantage of him and Cade, or we don't think that we can beat whoever comes out of the West. I think that is a legitimate reason to not do it as well, where you go, look, it doesn't make sense for us to, blow it all right now. It makes more sense for us to just see what we can do this year. And then in the off season or during next year, really make that decision. The reality is also you're going to have Jalen Duren locked up under a long-term contract at that point. I don't know if that makes him more or less appealing. He's probably going to get paid a lot. He's still going to be, though, 23 going, next year. He's still going to be super, super young. So it's not like a scary contract by any means. He's not going to probably not going to make an all NBA team this year as well. So you don't necessarily have to worry about that too. So yeah, we will see. A team is also going to be able to potentially extend Ausar Thompson if they trade for him too. So I think there's a lot of appeal to what the Pistons bring. I think you're 100% though right on, Aaron. There's also just like the possibility that he doesn't want to come here, and that the Pistons trade package is not what the Bucks are looking for. Like you said, Mike, maybe they say, hey, just because we're trading Giannis doesn't mean we can't still be a very competitive team. And they'd prefer somebody like Karl Anthony Towns and perhaps another like solid rotation player from the Knicks, and they go, hey, if we get a couple picks, we can build this thing back up pretty quickly. So yeah, there's a lot of reasons why this trade couldn't or even shouldn't happen. It's just, for me, it's like, it's the same arguments that you would make against like a Lauri Markkanen trade. I just think for me, the difference between Lauri Markkanen and Giannis is about like 300 spots on the NBA's all-time greatest players list. You know what I mean? That's the difference.
Conversation. I think it's a different conversation than Anthony Davis. Like, I just think Giannis is the tier of players at Giannis's level is so small. Like,
top 75 versus top 25, man. There's a big difference.
Exactly. Yes, 100%.
Yeah, and I think also with the AD thing, it's like, I mean, the guy's nickname is Street Clothes, for God's sake. And like, I'm not as sure he's quite as complimentary. Like, I'm not sure building the team around him and Cade is quite as easy as it is Cade and Giannis. And also, just frankly, like the clock is shorter there. Like, you have less time of AD being AD than you do of Giannis being Giannis. Obviously, acts of God notwithstanding in this case. So yeah, I'm way, way, way more open to that as somebody who said, like, I'm pretty on the fence about making like a big move. I'm more in the camp of like, I think for me, I'd prefer to do those things I was talking about earlier in the show, and like, let's get some spacing on this team and like see what we can do there. And then think about it in the offseason or at the trade deadline. Who knows?
Yeah, he's out for a month. He's going to be reevaluated in 2 to 4 weeks. Reevaluated doesn't mean playing. So this could drag out. I don't think it's going to come before the end of the year. It's going to come closer to the trade deadline. I'm sure the Bucks still think they can compete. I believe I read somewhere that they thought that Kevin Porter Jr. playing better would be the answer. Yikes. What a Jimmy Haslam type thing to think about. So this is going to drag. I feel like Giannis has been in trade rumors for, 4 years now at this point. I mean, ESPN's been pushing this narrative. Now they finally get what they've been hoping for. The Damian Lillard trade just killed him. The Drew Holiday trade killed him a little bit. Just a lot of poor moves and some bad luck. I mean, Dame is one of those guys who had his Achilles tear, and who knows what happens if he's healthy and they don't lose to Indiana in the first round last year. Lots of what ifs. Lots and lots of what ifs. There's also lots of time between now and the deadline. Things could change, but I think we're all in agreement. If you're waiting for your cash in all your chips at the casino type of move, it's not going to get a whole of a hell lot better than Giannis suddenly becoming available. I mean, who are you waiting for? Are you waiting for Doncic? Are you waiting for Jokic? That's not going to happen.
Well, you say that about
that's very true. That's an anomaly. That's a Haley's Comet thing that happened at
I know you can never
Eastern time.
You can never say like, well, that'll never happen ever again because that trade.
No,
that trade
you're right.
So
I think about that a lot. When
I know.
I think of things that I'm like, that'll never happen. I think Luka Doncic got traded, so anything's possible.
It ruined the ability to discuss these things logically because it was the most illogical trade of all time.
My perspective of these trades is forever ruined because of that.
I will say one last small thing, and I don't know, maybe I'm wrong on this, but I do think Giannis has legitimate love for the city of Milwaukee and for that organization. And I don't know, maybe the thought of being traded to a in-division rival, I know divisions don't matter anymore, but an in-division historical rival in the Pistons, I could see that rubbing people in Milwaukee the wrong way, and I could see him wanting to avoid that. I'm not saying, I have no idea, but like, I could see that entering into the equation from his perspective too.
I could also see him not getting traded. He hasn't actually requested a trade. The conversation is, let's talk about our future.
It feels like it's
over.
This feels deeper than that.
Conspiracy theory hat on for a minute, and I go back and I watch the play where Giannis gets quote unquote injured during the Pistons game. It looked so routine, and then it just looked so again, conspiracy theory here. It just looked like he immediately called a timeout. It looked almost performative in a way. And then the fact that nobody was really around him when he walked over to the bench except his brother. Every other player and coach outside of medical personnel were all together in a huddle, and Giannis was off to the side with just his brother. Like, again, conspiracy theorist, not saying this is the reality, but it all looked a little odd. And then it comes, a few hours after the report that he's meeting with the Bucks, and within the coming weeks, they're going to have a decision on his future. The timeline is just perfect of, he's going to be out for the next 2-ish to 4-ish weeks, which is like the perfect amount of time needed for him to get traded, travel to his new city, get acclimated with the team, and then suit up. Again, conspiracy hat on, looking at it from a different lens. It all just is interesting.
Aaron, I'll believe it when I see him show up to the Bucks holiday party wearing like 8 Christmas sweaters all over each other, a la James Harden. You're like, Giannis has been hitting the eggnog. He opened all his advent calendars early this year. Just been chowing down on chocolate, getting fat, ready for a trade. And then he loses it all the second he gets steps foot in Manhattan. Who knows?
Or he shows up, or he shows up to the facility in a "That's All, Folks" T-shirt, a la Anthony Davis.
Oh yeah!
Wow.
Uh-oh.
Last question, and then we'll end. Where is he going to get traded to? Just say the team name.
The Knicks.
They couldn't make it happen this summer. It was on the table. I'm just telling you. Knicks was already on the table this summer, and it didn't happen. Oh, God help me. Oh, God help me. I'm going to say it, aren't I? Oklahoma City Thunder. Oh.
No.
Chet Holmgren. Oh, AJ Mitchell. Oh, 5 first-round picks over the next 7 years. Oh, my stomach.
The Thunder just won a title and have a elite young core intact. Why would they want to do that?
Aaron, I don't know if you've looked around lately, but everything in the world is getting worse. So why shouldn't the Oklahoma City Thunder go from winning a title to losing 3 games and getting Giannis, huh? Why not? Why not? Everything's getting worse.
I hate it.
You have to assume the funniest / most awful outcome is the outcome that will occur. And to me, that is the funniest / most awful outcome. So
definitely the most awful. I'm with you.
That is the most awful outcome.
I can't find the comedic side of that. I just think it's awful.
Yeah, you have a twisted sense of humor.
I'm a sick puppy. What can I say? I'm a nasty boy. I'm one of the nasty boys, man. Come on now.
You and Dennis Jenkins.
Me and Dennis Jenkins, nasty boys.
All right,
man. That's wrap up time. That's wrap up time.
That is wrap up time. Aaron, do you want to do our song and dance at the end?
Yeah. So I'll get performative here. I'll do my Giannis impression of being performative. Go hit the like button. Go hit
do the accent. Do the accent.
No, we're not doing that today. This is not going to be on that show. Go hit the subscribe button. Go over to palacefpistons.com. Type in your email to get all of our content sent directly to your email inbox as soon as it goes live, completely free of charge. If you're listening on Apple, Spotify, leave us a rating, leave us a 5-star review, all that good stuff. Just help us continue to grow. Some of the numbers that we're seeing, the traction that we're getting, super, super awesome. I know some of it is just due to the Pistons being good and people starting to care about them more. And, that's great. But I think there's also some people that enjoy what we're doing. We see it in the comments on YouTube all the time, which is really, really humbling to see. So appreciate everyone for tuning in. And just if you're one of those people, and I know you're out there that listens on Apple, that listens on Spotify, or watches on YouTube every week, just make sure you've hit the subscribe button. Make sure you've hit the follow button, because a lot of the time you just haven't. And it's just a habit for you to come on here every Friday and tune in. And that's great. But it helps us a lot if you hit those buttons. So we appreciate you, and give us a little, Christmas gift as we head into the holiday season. Please. That's all I ask for, Santa.
As long as it's not the Christmas gift that Giannis's wife got for him. I don't know if you've ever seen that video.
No.
I haven't seen
Oh boy.
I don't want to see it.
Oh boy.
I
It's
don't
just the
wanna
one
see
it's the one where he has the
it's
classic
real.
line. He goes, the Greek freak. He's a freak on the court and a freak in the sheets. It's like one of the greatest videos of all time, man. Get that guy on my roster now, dude. I sell everybody. Get me Giannis.
Aaron's just thinking we got so close to finishing, and now I have to put
So
the explicit tag
close.
on the podcast.
So close. We just had to shout out Believe and FanDuel and go home, and we didn't make it.
We didn't make it. No.
Early Christmas gift to myself. What can I say, guys?
Well, we'll go ahead and finally make it home after Jasper just railroaded us at the end. We'd like to thank our sponsor for this week's episode, and that is FanDuel. For my co-hosts, Jasper Apollonia and Aaron Johnson, I'm Mike Anguilano. Thank you so much for joining us on this week's edition of the Palace of Pistons Podcast, part of the Believe Network, and we will see you all next time.